Broadcasting from Oklahoma, the tornado capital of the world, home of the Oklahoma City Thunder and the University of Oklahoma Sooners. This is the Curated Experience Show, a weekly podcast about the customer experience with viewpoints you will not hear anywhere else. And now your host, author, and customer experience expert, Amos Tanuma.
Welcome to the Curated Experience. I am your host, Amos Tanuma.
And I've got a guest on with me today. I've got Chad Sanderson. Chad, are you still with me?
I am.
Hey, Chad, it's a pleasure. I'm glad you're doing this. So Chad's been in sales and marketing over 20 years. He's got a framework. He works with companies of all sizes, doing this framework and working with executives all around sales and marketing. And we'll post Chad's info and his contact with the show notes so you guys can reach out to him. Chad, welcome to the show. I hope you are doing well and you've been keeping safe.
I'm doing great and as safe as anybody can be right now, but grateful that it's another day and everybody seems to be happy and healthy so far.
Awesome. Where do you live?
Well, I'm a little bit south of Denver, Colorado, in a town called Castle Rock. It's on the east. If you were to go straight south, it's on the east side.
Perfect. Let's jump into it. As you know, folks who listen to our show are primarily interested in customer experience and how to improve the customer experience throughout the customer journey. So today, I know you heavily focus on sales and marketing, but here's where I would love to start. In the companies and executives you deal with on a daily basis, describe to me a little bit of what the status quo is based on what you see. What's going well? What do people tend to struggle with? Just give us the lay of the land from your vantage point.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Before I started doing this, sales enablement type of thing where I was working with organizations, I spent 10 years in agencies that were focused on creating customer experience, digital customer experiences. And in every interaction through that time and through now when I'm working with sales and marketing executives, there is a verbiage, a talk track of we want to create a better customer experience. We want to understand the customer, but the action has a tendency to be much more focused internally on the organization. And so they have a tendency to say the right things without understanding that the behavior and some of the perspectives actually need to change in order to implement those things and truly impact the customer experience.
That's so interesting. I often joke that, no one is against improving the customer experience.
Right.
Right. It's almost like no one goes in and says, gosh, we're going to do badly with customer experience. It's all the actions in between that sort of gets in the way. So to that point, I've spent some time, preparing for this, looking at your stuff. What do you think that people just get wrong off the bat? Like, where does their attention tend to go? What do they spend their time and resources in that you found maybe has a limited return on investment?
That is a great question. I think there's an awful lot of internal time spent getting prepared to engage the customers to understand what their experience is. And, your audience will be very familiar with journey maps and empathy maps and all of those types of things. So there is a tendency when those are executed to not be aware of the biases that they are applying to the approach that they're not aware of, right? And that filter thing, everybody's probably heard the phrase rose-colored glasses, right? So everybody looks through this lens of, hey, this is my company. And instead of starting from complete scratch, what is it that caused the customer or the desired customer or client to start this journey? Rather than starting there, they still have a tendency to make the jumping off point first contact. And they don't have a tendency to go far enough, in my experience. And this applies to not only on the marketing side, but also on the sales side. They don't have a tendency to be able to look past that ledge or that first contact point. That seems to be their grounding point. And it creates a false positive impression because they think, okay, if they're let's just use an example of a website. Somebody comes to my website and they say, hey, I want to talk to you. And okay, we're worried about the experience they're having on the website, and then what's the experience of the people that are talking to them, then what steps do we have to make them do, how do we make it frictionless and easy for them to do business with us. But oftentimes we're not set up to even ask the questions or fill in what it was that brought them to the website in the first place, right? To understand what problem they actually think we might be able to help them solve that encouraged them or inspired them to reach out to us. And so there's this tendency, I think, to spend a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of resources developing very detailed journey maps, customer journey, buying experience, whatever you want to call them. But they don't have a tendency to go far enough in really understanding where the genesis of the interest comes from.
Listen, you're speaking my language. One of the things that really, really got me excited was, and this would be an overgeneralization of some of your approach, you're bringing some science into a sales process that's been known for a lot of art, right?
Yeah.
And so to pull on that thread a little bit, so there is this whole concept of you're starting this movie in the middle, right? Like you think you're at the beginning, but like this movie started like the world doesn't revolve around you and your brand, right? Like something was happening before they got here. So to pull further on that thread, talk a little bit about what you've seen even down the line in the way we sort of approach selling in general, right? So there's this concept of you don't get where they're starting from. So then there's that problem. And then after they're in your bubble, if you will, what else have you seen that if organizations really pay attention to, they'll see a lift?
Yeah. So if you think about, if we just use salespeople, right? Let's think about their journey. They get hired by a company, and they come into that company, and that company spends differing levels of time basically feeding them the Kool-Aid of why we're so cool. Look what our product can do. Look what our services can do. Look at all these people we've helped. Us. And then we unleash them on the world, and we're surprised when all they want to talk about is us. When really there is nothing more powerful than that true human-to-human connection, whether it's done through a virtual environment, Zoom or GoToMeeting or whatever, or it's done sitting across the table from someone, but really taking the time to have a conversation to actually understand someone else's perspective. And we have a tendency to not train people how to have conversations, to uncover and connect to what somebody else finds valuable. We spend too much time trying to convince them that what we have is valuable, when in essence, we have zero value to a customer until they determine that we are valuable to them. And it is a subtle shift that only requires a natural level of curiosity and a consistent way of engaging in a conversation, which is what we spend most of our time working with customers on, is training individuals, whether it be in sales or marketing. I've trained graphic designers, data analysts, tech leads, people in large agencies even that are focused on helping other companies create these journeys, help them understand, how do I consistently understand another human being's perspective? And it gets more important by the day because of all of the digital input we're taking in. Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Snapchat, just the list goes on, and then all your email and all that stuff, right? So we're all inundated, and it's all us, right? It's all been designed. I know because we designed some of those apps. It's all designed to give people what they want, when they want it, on their terms, from their perspective. But then we go to engage in a conversation, and most conversations are all about me and what I have and what I can provide. Don't worry about what you need. Wait, let me tell you more about myself. And we have to flip that a little bit. And the minute you do it, and it's not hard, it is common sense. It is, and I say this to our customers, what I'm going to teach your teams is common sense, but very, very, very rarely common practice.
Wow. And like I can pull on that thread all day. But I want you to, something you said there that really struck me, which is, so if I'm with you, and I am, how do you operationalize this? Like that becomes the trick, right? So I've got, dozens of salespeople running around who have spent decades talking about myself, right? Like I want to help you. It's all about me, right? And oh, by the way, by helping me, it'll help you. How have you been successful in turning that into an operational system that an entire team or company can embrace and begin to sell differently? And I think what you're talking about is so important because the world is getting more and more and more noisy.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Absolutely.
like I just anecdotally, I was talking to my team and I just said, like, we have to figure out how to stop posting on the internet. And they looked at me like a crazy person. And I go, like, everyone is screaming in this loud marketplace. We've got to get our audience out of here in a place where they can actually listen to us, right? So in some ways, salespeople have the same challenge, right? I'm trying to communicate something to you that hopefully adds value, and the old methods may not work anymore, given all you've described, right? All the noise and all of these things. How have you been able to turn that into not just a one-off, but a system or an entire company can embrace?
Yeah, so the value selling framework is basically, it is a conversational GPS. It's a very simple tool set, and it's designed to accomplish one thing, and that is to drive consistency of behavior across the team and internally in the organization. So everybody has a shared language. It's not overly complex. We have one tool we call a value prompter, and that basically tells us, here's how I need to approach this conversation. It's not a script. Nobody's writing scripts. It is designed to enhance your authenticity, but make sure you're not missing anything. And it's activated with open, probing, and confirming questions, so I can consistently understand where I am in any given conversation. Have I reached a true understanding, where we would call a vision match, with this other individual? And do I understand how they are going to quantify the value of this interaction, of this solution, of this product, of whatever? This is why it works so well, not just from a sales standpoint or a marketing standpoint. We use the same tool set, this value prompter, we can create personas with it. We can create content strategy. It's basically one page that is designed to ensure that as we are talking to coworkers or prospects or existing clients, we are consistently, and that is the key word, working to uncover what their perspective is, and doing that in a way that then allows us to attach what we can bring to the table to this other individual's view of what's important. And that becomes the subtle shift. We have to get people to stop talking first and ask questions, not just any questions, right? We want to be consistent even in the areas of information that we're exploring. Most salespeople, the minute they hear somebody has one problem, they either go into pitch mode, like they start talking about them, or they're off calculating commission because they know it's a problem they can solve. When what they really need to be doing is spending the time becoming problem experts, really digging back. What was the genesis? What is the thing that this individual has to accomplish, and in what amount of time? And what are the problems getting in the way? Let's just ask some questions and really confirm back in their own language what we're hearing, so they feel heard. This allows for an alignment that is much more human to human, and it is much more driven by the buyer or the other individual that you're talking to drive consistent alignment.
Wow. And if you're just tuning in, we are chatting with Chad Sanderson with Value Selling. He's a 2018 Stevie Award winner, sales and marketing guru. I want to touch on one more thing because we're getting close to wrapping up here, which is this concept you have around, which blew me away. In the day where Amazon and Microsoft and everyone else is at all-time highs in the stock market, here comes this guy. You saying that human to human is even more important as tech increases, particularly in B2B. I want you to expound on that a little bit, because it's in some ways it feels like it's going against the grain.
So think about it like this. There's different industries. So if we think of a B2C experience, right? My human to human experience is delivered we'll use Amazon, by that app. I am looking at the reviews. I'm looking at how fast they can get me the things I want when I want them. If I have to make a phone call, how well am I being treated? So I almost am anthropomorphizing the brand into this individual so that I have some semblance of trust, right? We trust the brand that comes from them, us attributing to them characteristics you would attribute to any human being that you would talk to. And it just kind of happens naturally, right? Some people are more comfortable ordering from Amazon than they are from, Walmart or whatever it may be, because Amazon's known for all of the things it does to surround their customers with love. You get into a B2B environment and it's all about the trust between two individuals. And that's where conversation has a tendency to happen even more often. Although I will say in the B2C environment, we've trained call center reps in this framework so that when somebody calls, it is still consistently about the individual calling rather than the person on the other end of the phone. And so that understanding of that human motivator, of the way the human brain works to generate connection, to generate usage of an app, to generate a true complex enterprise sale or a complex enterprise marketing is critical, as well as how do you connect inside of your own organization to then ensure that the experience you are providing to your customers and to our prospects is as frictionless and seamless as possible? That requires all of the elements of any organization, even if it's B2C, to be all on the same page. And everybody, I'm sure listening, has worked for, seen, or heard about an organization that is inherently siloed. Marketing doesn't know what sales is doing. Customer experience doesn't know what sales is doing. Operations and product has no clue what sales is out selling. Like it creates this fractured company, and then you wonder why your customer experience suffers for that. So if we give everybody a common language and a common way to communicate to drive consistent understanding and what we would call a vision match, it drives a much more seamless experience, not only for the employees, so your EX employee experience is greater, but it also enables you to go back to that genesis point of your customers and understand what it was that brought them in the door in the first place.
Wow. And one last thing, we like to leave people with, if you're listening to this and you're wondering, gosh, where do I start? What are some, quick things or things to keep in mind, or frankly, they can go do if they want to begin along this journey?
The easiest thing, and this is going to sound so simple, somebody's going to be like, really? That's what you're giving me? But the easiest thing is when somebody starts to talk to you, whether it be somebody that you're working with or it be a customer prospect, just ask why. When they're asking you a question, they are asking you that question because they believe there is an answer that may help them solve a problem. So if they come to you and they ask you a question, it's like, oh, okay, well, help me understand, why is that so important to solve right now? Now I'm backing up to what was the genesis. I'm going back towards the genesis of why they think this problem is something they need to solve right now. So we call it, it's the why test. Why? You want to get back to what is the number one thing they're focused on right now that makes them believe the problem they're experiencing is something that needs to be solved, which will then help you understand why they came to you looking for a solution. Or better yet, if you're prospecting to them, it gives you a target to aim at with content that will be valuable to them so that you're not going after them trying to sell them something, but you're rather going after them trying to help them solve problems. So first and foremost, ask why. Second thing I would say, second easiest thing you can start doing is just as you're listening to somebody, just confirm back what you just heard, but use their language. Don't translate it into your companyese or whatever it is. Use their language, right? That shows them that it's the key to active listening. Makes them understand you are paying attention to them. You're focused on them. You're not messing around with a phone or looking at Slack or doing something else. Right. That you actually are there and focused on that individual. Those two things will start to change the dynamics of your conversations as well as the results you have coming out the other side.
That's awesome. Chad, I wanted to thank you so much for doing the show. Chad's with Value Selling. We will post his contact info. He is active on LinkedIn, Facebook, his website, and email. And we'll put that online for all of you. And again, really appreciate you doing this, Chad.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you.
And until next time, remember, the experience is either random or intentionally curated. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to The Curated Experience with Amas Tanuma. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll join the conversation online by visiting us at curatedcx.com or at amastanuma.com. That's curatedcx.com or amastenumah.com. And please invite your friends and colleagues to visit our website or iTunes where they can check this and previous podcasts. This has been a Bien LLC production. Check us next time for another edition of The Curated Experience.